Hello, back to Abstract Thinking Podcast, where we basically discuss where philosophy and politics meet.
It's the funnest time of my life.
And we're going to move into nihilism today in a serious way, in a way that we have not done yet.
Very true. Today we're going to talk about the major difference between the two major types of nihilism. And the two major types of, or at least I call them the two major types of nihilism because they're the two types of nihilism shown in pop culture, being cosmic nihilism or existential nihilism. Both me and Matthew are nihilists. Matthew is the side of the existential nihilist, and I am the side of the cosmic nihilists because I am a cosmic nihilist and he is an existentialist. Fucking free thinking bitch. What? But cosmic nihilism is shown in many people's favorite show, Rick and Morty. One of my personal favorites. And existential nihilism is shown on many other people's not favorite TV show, because I don't think it could be anybody's favorite TV show, BoJack Horseman.
That's some shade at BoJack.
It's just not that good of a show. I'm sorry. It's my view. I mean, since we're talking about it, I feel like we should go in alphabet. No, we should go in the opposite of alphabetical order when we're talking about these. We should talk about existentialism first, because it's the bigger one. Existential nihilism is the inherent belief that life is meaningless.
Right, like intrinsic meaning. There is no intrinsic meaning or objective meaning to living.
To define it, existential nihilism is the philosophical theory that life has no intrinsic meaning or value. With respect to the universe, existential nihilism suggests that a single human or even the entire human species is insignificant without purpose.
Which, seems to me to be the biggest duh ever. Like, obviously there's no objective meaning.
But to continue the definition. And it's unlikely to change and we're unlikely to change the totality of existence.
Totalitarian communism.
That's what you are. But the inherent idea of existentialism is that the goal of humanity in life is to give or to invent meaning in your life.
Yeah, so like the idea that's kind of pervaded into mainstream American culture of like, you choose your own meaning. Whatever you want to do, you can do whatever you set your mind to, like that type of rhetoric. That's where that comes from.
I inherently disagree with this, but Matthew can believe what he wants to believe. Further continuing, the inherent meaninglessness of life is largely explored in the philosophical school of existentialism, where one can potentially create their own subjective meaning,
yes,
not intrinsic. That's the difference.
Right.
Because intrinsic meaning basically, you're better with vocabulary than me. What's the difference between intrinsic and subjective meanings?
Well, intrinsic or objective would mean that, like, built into the structure of living, there is a meaning there. That's what that would mean. Like, it's predetermined, like, before you're even born.
So that's intrinsic meaning?
That's what it would be if it was real.
Now, what's subjective meaning?
Well, it's basically like, I am
it's the meaning. Subjective
political commentator. That's my place in the world. That's my subjective purpose in this life. Like, that's what that would be.
So subjectivism is your own personal idea of your meaning, and intrinsic is the inherent and your meaning, basically your meaning at birth. You're going to do this at birth,
right? And
once your intrinsic meaning is basically destiny,
right?
In normal people's words,
I actually think it's kind of emancipating to think that there's no objective meaning to life. Because if there was, then like the point of you existing you wouldn't be able to choose it. Like you wouldn't have a choice. And I think like that's why I think it's so obvious. Like all you have to do is connect the dots and realize like, oh, but I don't have a predestined purpose. Unfortunately, it seems to take depression for people to realize that.
Yeah. Well, in a lot of cases. And like basically existentialism. I'm trying to put break this down into layman's terms, like terms that normal, uneducated people could understand. I'm not calling myself educated by saying that. I'm just saying like I've done a lot more research than the average person probably has on existential nihilism. But the uneducated mind would like see that it's very hard to understand that there is no destined meaning, right? So, but that's also a problem with pop culture of older past times. Like the whole idea of the American dream is an idea of intrinsic meaning, right? If you really think about it,
Kind of.
all of these like specific dreams that are set up by businesses and set up by corporations or by governments, that these are the intrinsic meanings to your life and this is what you should strive to do. But just because intrinsic meanings can be created or given created by humanity doesn't mean that they actually exist in reality.
Right. It's not like they weren't created and they were always there.
Yeah.
It's total different thing.
The problem, one of the inherent paradoxes of intrinsic meaning is like the intrinsic meaning of intrinsic meaning is non-existent because there is no intrinsic meaning was never an idea that was always there. And that's the whole entire idea of intrinsic meaning. It's always been there.
So it's kind of like
it's paradoxical and cyclical if you look at it from a cyclical perspective. But look at me with my flowery vocabulary, flourishing vocabulary.
Doesn't be my thing, but
kind of stepping on Matt's toes here. But existentialism basically is the idea that your life has no intrinsic meaning, but you can give it subjective meaning, right? Cosmic nihilism, is the thought that no matter what anybody does ever, life will have no meaning, not subjectively, not intrinsically, not at all.
It just leans right into there is no meaning thing.
Meaning can be created in imaginative sense, in an unrealistic sense, but in reality there is no meaning at all. You can't give it meaning, and there are many attempts at it, and a lot of cosmic nihilists believe that religion is a very a highly used way of trying to give life meaning, right?
Yeah.
That's why a lot of cosmic nihilists are atheists. But
a lot of people seem to run away from nihilism into subjective structures of meaning that are already in place, like religion. Like it seems like it scares them.
Yes, and that's because it does. Lack of meaning is scary to me.
It seems like people just need to be a sheep, and they need shepherds sometimes. To me, you know.
That's why there have always been leaders, Matthew.
But that's a fundamental question that we should be asking. Like, is it actually true that maybe the majority of humans, or maybe all humans, need like a god to serve? Is that the case?
I wouldn't say that, because then why do you have atheists?
Well, because their thing that is their god that they serve is not a literal god. I mean, like
they have to have
people need to subordinate themselves to a higher thing.
People need to be slaves,
right?
I don't mess. I
Do you think they do?
don't know.
You think it's part of human nature to subject yourself to other like
Well, I think
forces?
yeah, I think it's part of human nature to subject yourself to other things. But I also think it's part of human nature to break human nature. And that's why you have cosmic venom.
Well, I think the concept of human nature is amorphous because it's like throughout all the different systems that we've seen in history, they explain human nature in a way that as if it's natural for them to fit into that system. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's kind of interesting to see.
I mean,
I try to stay away from talking like, oh, that's against human nature, because I don't actually think we know what human nature is.
I think human nature is another one of those invented meanings.
Yeah.
I think human nature is like, since it's so flexible, human nature doesn't define a society as society defines it.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Human nature. Like if you look at the Aztecs versus the Romans' version of human nature was to expand their power, to further conquer, to be these hedonistic people that they were, right? Whereas the Aztecs were very subordinate to the sun. They literally to the point where they'd go out and capture other humans and try to and like literally sacrifice them to the sun to make sure the sun would rise.
Right.
And both of these were definitions of human nature, at least two totally different societies.
And that's such a clear subjective meaning.
Exactly. But subjective meaning isn't meaning, in my opinion. I don't think you can create your own meaning because no matter the inherent idea of meaning is that it's going to affect something after you die, right?
I get.
That's the inherent idea of meaning to me. Like meaning implies legacy.
It can.
It does.
But like when people say like this is my purpose, I don't think that's what they mean. I think they mean like this is the thing that I'm living for. You know?
Yeah, that's what I think subjective your idea of subjective meaning is.
Yeah.
It's not meaning.
It's not like this is how I'm gonna. Well, maybe it is partly like this is how I'm gonna leave a mark, but I don't think that's the whole shebang.
I do. I think everybody wants to leave a legacy on the world, and I think truly leaving a legacy on the world is impossible. And that's why I don't think meaning can exist, because I think no matter what humans do, and no matter both as an individual and as a society, it will never mean anything in the view of the universe or even in the view of the world, because we simply just.
But the universe and the world doesn't have a view.
Yes, it does.
What do you mean?
It's a non-subjective viewpoint.
Oh, so you mean like just from in the perspective of the objective? Well, like I would argue that with like, how do you know what's objective if literally every possible documented anything is just within the confines of the human experience? Like there's literally colors that we can't see.
Yeah,
like,
that's the thing.
Humans can never achieve a perfect objective conception of anything. That's my position.
I mean,
it's essentially permeated by subjectivity because we're humans.
And subjectivity is the reason why there can't be meaning. That's my whole point.
But like, does that make sense?
People try to give their lives subjective meaning so they don't fucking kill themselves.
Yeah, but why is that? Why should that be discounted as not objective if like you literally can't see through an objective because you're a limited human being?
That's the whole point of cosmic nihilism, Matthew. You're explaining cosmic nihilism.
But you're like basing the analysis off of this objective that you don't even know what it is. You can't even perceive.
And I'm not. No, that's what my point is that there is no objective. There can't be an objective.
Okay.
Because as humans, we're too fragile of beings, and our brains aren't powerful enough to comprehend the entire view of existence. Therefore, you can't have meaning to it.
But
I
don't think it's therefore you can't have meaning through it. I think it's therefore literally everything is subjective, so it doesn't matter if your meaning is subjective. That's not what it is, though. You can't have
your subjective meaning is meaninglessness inherently. Because if you have no intrinsic meaning, then when you try to give yourself subjective meaning, it's just trying to find a human an understandable by human replacement to meaning. Therefore, it's not meaning at all.
Right, but your whole experience is the human experience. So why can't, like...
There's a difference between experience and meaning, Matthew.
I think this is more of like a realist idealist argument, you know? Because, like, if you go extreme realism, what you find is like, okay, all your thoughts literally don't matter because they're literally just thoughts. They don't actually exist. It's just synapses in your brain and chemicals and shit like that. Like the full realist, like objective, like position just ex-nays all of your feelings. You know what I mean?
I don't think they understood that word, the E word you just said.
Like it's just like, oh shit. Next mom wants to know what he's doing. You know what I mean? Like,
What?
I kind of lost my trail there.
Yeah, it sounded like it.
But
mainly because I think I broke it apart.
What I'm saying is like, these pieces of nihilistic thought are they're just kind of obvious, and they kind of, like, here's the huge irony I'll introduce, they kind of don't matter.
Yeah.
Like, you can, I just want people to still live their lives with their subjective meanings and not discount them, because I don't think they should be discounted.
I mean, I think the fact that we're having this argument kind of is pointless. This argument as a whole is pointless, in my opinion. Like, the inherent idea of, like, well, not the inherent idea, but like the thing that a lot of cosmic nihilists like myself do with our lives is, like, since we recognize the fact that we don't have meaning, we really can't give it meaning, we just kind of try to enjoy what we're given.
You get pushed into hedonism.
Yeah.
Yeah, and materialistic pleasure. Yeah, that's the other part of this.
Cosmic nihilism is a very, well, hedonistic nihilism, which is ironic because the inherent idea of it is the fact that we don't have meaning. It's kind of the most depressing nihilism at the same time.
So I think different personality types take those thought processes and paths in different directions. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, some people go the hedonistic route. They're like, okay, there's no meaning to life. I might as well enjoy myself while I'm here, right?
And then there's the people who
get
realize,
scared of it, and they go into like, oh, I gotta go find a totalitarian system to impulge myself into, like,
or they just kill themselves,
or they just kill themselves,
which is my inherent view.
or they just live in depression. I guess they don't kill themselves.
I like, my thing is, like, my inherent view is the fact that, like,
Or they become existentialists.
you mean they become stupid?
No, it's not stupid. It's just like another layer of ideal.
Flawed. How would that? Is that better? The inherent idea of, like, my inherent idea of the world is that, like, anything I ever do will not have real consequence to me, because in order to avoid that consequence, I can just kill myself, and it'll have no meaning on the universe. Actually, honest to God truth, which is ironic of me to say.
I think there's a difference here, though, which maybe we'll get into in depth, about the separation between the way things are and the way that you should act.
So morals?
Yeah, kind of. Like, here's the other part, is I'm a moral nihilist too. I think there's no objective morality. And I make that argument when I make arguments that are pro drugs and pro, like, sexual degeneracy and stuff like that.
All morals are, like, people base their morals off of their subjective views.
Exactly.
So it's another type of it's basically if you're taking existentialism to a new level, where and that's when it honestly could kind of be called existential moralism.
But I don't think that that human beings as a species, I don't think it's productive for them to act nihilism out, in the sense that I don't think it's productive for them to act as though their actions do not have consequence, because that's just an alibi for terrible shit to be done to people.
I mean,
so I think,
don't get me wrong, that's the thing. Like with me as with my worldview, I guess, like I realize the fact that none of my consequences can really affect me because they can't affect the universe, because I could just kill myself to get out of them, right?
But you also
I also realize the fact that like in order for me to enjoy my hedonistic style of living, I have to avoid some of these consequences. So I don't have to kill myself yet.
But also, I'm thinking that people should also take into account, like, before they kill themselves, like, what's going to happen after. Like, I think that just people should act as if all their actions have consequence, because really they do. They all, every little thing that everyone does is ripples. It's all connected like a web.
I mean,
I subscribe to the view of the human species as if it's like all one person, and like we're all just like sending ripples through the waves at each other. Because every little thing that I do will affect everyone else I know, and every little thing they do affects everyone else they know. So like we might as well all be one. Interconnectivity.
I mean,
I think it's more productive for human beings to act as if every action that they conduct has a consequence, rather than no action that anyone conducts has any consequence at all. I think it's more productive. And I don't think there's any between those two extremes. I don't think there's any logical answer that's between those two. I think it's literally either one or the other. You either act like everything you do matters, or act like nothing anyone does matters.
Well, that's like my thing. I the way I see it is like I find the idea of morals kind of idiotic in a way, because like morals implies that you have subjective meaning, and like I said, I don't believe in subjective meaning, because I don't think if you can, like, I don't think you can give yourself meaning. You can give yourself lifestyle, but you cannot give yourself meaning. Lifestyle and meaning are two totally different things. But like morals are just stupid to me, because like morals create, or put there to try to create order in the human psyche, right?
Yeah. But also, I have a feeling that some of our morality is evolutionarily based.
Yeah.
Like we evolved so that the majority of us are not child rapists. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we also evolved with the majority, so the majority of us are murderers.
Right.
But
and that's why when you hear about people getting shot and kids getting raped, you think it's wrong. But it's important to note that that's also still a subjective morality, even if it's built into your DNA.
It is still subjective.
It's not an objective one.
But like, how do I put this? Like morals, the problem with morals, especially in society, is that like when you have society, the only way to create order through morals is with government. And when you have something like government, specifically like democracy, you allow people that have terrible morals the chance to have control over the morals of a whole versus the morals of yourself, of the individual. So you have, like, they base their morals into law, and that you have to follow these laws, which are inherently wrong.
Well, I think there's an interplay between the imposition of the morals into law and
the morality
Well,
itself.
if you think about it,
it's a complicated, like, we need to find where the line should be drawn. You know, that's the arguments where people argue about whether or not this or that should be legalized or criminalized. Like, you know,
I mean,
that's a constant dialogue between us.
yeah. But like, and that's the thing, though. When you have government creates power, right?
Well, government is a power structure. It's a hierarchical system. Yeah.
It creates power. Government gives power, right? Power attracts the immoral, right? So inherently, when you have government, immorality is inherently going to happen. Because
there's some issues with that.
According to the subjective morality of society, a lust for power is inherently immoral, right?
Right, but that's not the only people that power systems attract.
That you attract two major types of people. One significantly less often, one significantly more often. You attract either people like George Washington, who think that like government, they believe that their job or their subjective view of their government is that somebody needs to lead it who is properly moral and will create a good society, which is the less likely option. Then you have the more likely option with people like Stalin, who see this power and they gain a lust for it, and this power attracts bad people, these bad people to it. And that's why a lot of our lawmakers nowadays are bought out by corporation, because corporation offers them more power.
Yeah.
So,
and it's systemic as well.
Yeah.
And people tend to follow the way that the systems that they interact in run, the way they have ran before they entered them.
So, like, basically what I'm getting at is the idea of government is inherently immoral. And that's the problem with morals. As they try to create these moral structures that end up inherently being immoral.
So would you say that the state, like the political test question about like the state is inherently a threat to our liberty, you'd agree with that?
I think, what are we talking about? Like the state, like Maine, or like the state of government?
No, I mean the state as in government.
I think as long as you're part of a government, you can't have true freedom.
Right. I mean, that seems to be obvious as well, because even somebody saying that you're not free to kill someone is saying that you're not free to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of a weird little.
But that you also have to take into account that true freedom isn't always good. There are many bad things that come with true freedom.
Yeah, I mean, who's more of an anarchist, you think?
Well, are we talking about politically or philosophically?
Just overall.
Politically, you. Philosophically, me.
Why?
Overall,
break it down. Break it down.
Like, if you really think about it, we compare our two philosophies, existentialism versus cosmic nihilism,
right,
or cosmicism. Cosmicism allows for these ideas that like morals are invention of society to try to give new meaning, but it's inherently always going to fail, and you can't be truly free in your cosmic identity well being part of these morals, right? That's cosmicism for you, which is inherently more extreme than the existential view that my life, I can give my life subjective meaning, but when I give my life subjective meaning, it gives subjective morals. So basically, what the difference between these two is that in cosmicism, morals bear no value, where in existentialism, morals do. So inherently, your idea is less extreme than mine.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at us politically, you have somebody very, very far left, right?
Yeah.
And you have somebody who is kind of like middle right.
Ooh.
and then you take your views that like we need anarcho-syndicalism,
Yeah.
and we need the workforce to revolt and
democratize.
pure democratize, which is inherently more extreme than the idea of republicanism, which is what I subscribe to and what we have currently today in our government, because we realize the fact that it's a lot easier for a country of our size to have these votes and for the government to act quicker when we elect people who will vote for us, and they'll support the majority while upholding the minority, right?
Mm.
Or whereas you have pure democracy, which creates in a country like ours a very slow government system that involves making law when it comes to like making laws and making these and giving government control. It's very slow. It takes a very long time because everybody needs to vote on everything.
Yeah, well, like the speed of systems of government is they're all kind of slow.
Yeah.
Like one of the main things people complain about in this country is like Congress doesn't get shit done. They just fucking sit around and argue with each other.
Yeah, and then you have the people, the young people of today that want pure democracy, which would just make our government slower.
Maybe so.
Definitely so. Maybe so. He just doesn't want to fucking admit it.
I mean, I'm just saying there's no pure way to tell because like I can't see it happening.
I love how we're just both on our technology now. I feel like we should coordinate this, Matthew. With the whole view of, like, as I was saying, inherently, I'm less extreme when it comes to politics, but you're less extreme.
I'm further left and further liberty than you are.
I'm like middle right and like
Yeah.
middle liberty.
Which is, yeah, it's the way it is.
So yeah, I guess. But do you have any other questions, Matthew?
Well, like, are we done covering nihilism?
Not really. I'm just trying to like filter out the questions of what we've talked about already.
I mean, I think it's been smooth. I don't really
think what I've said made sense.
Yeah.
Well, I could move on to like meanings of life and
how they're all fake.
how in existentialism there is subjective meaning in more detail, and how in cosmic nihilism or cosmicism there's none. Because if you look at meaning of life, and I'm going to talk about a couple of major existentialists when I talk about this. With the meaning of life, I'm literally reading this off of my phone, guys. The idea that meaning and values are without foundation is a form of nihilism, and the existential response to the idea is noting that meaning is not a matter of contemplative theory, but instead a consequence of engagement and commitment. Which basically, if you break that down, says like when you really like come to think about it, you can't figure out the matter of contemplative theory of there being initial meaning, whereas you have the consequence of engagement and commitment, which is the depression of realizing that there is no implicit meaning, right? Now, if you look at people like Jean-Paul Sartre, a famous French nihilist,
and Marxist and existentialist.
He wrote an essay called Existentialism and Humanism. And quote unquote, he said, "What do we mean by saying existence precedes essence? We mean that man, first of all, exists, encounters himself, surges up in the world, and defines himself afterwards. If a man, as the existentialist sees him, is not definable, it is because, to begin with, he is nothing. He will not be anything until later, and then he will be what he makes of himself. Here it is made clear what is meant to be meant by an existentialist when they say meaning is a consequence of engagement and commitment." So, basically, what Sartre said is that at the beginning you are nothing, so your meaning, there can't be any meaning, right? When you're first conceived, you are a fucking I want to say an ovuli is the correct term.
Yeah.
You're a fucking ovula, basically an egg in your mother's womb, which is actually the only cell in the human body that's seeable from the naked eye. Random fact. But you're just an ovuli, and even as an ovuli, you're not fully you, because you're at that point you're just a cell, and for that cell to be expanding and creating you, you need to have your father's sperm, right?
Yeah, and you're literally not even born.
Yeah. You're literally nothing at that point. You're not, you can't process anything, you can't think, your heart's not beating.
100% abortable.
100% aborted. But
It's the truth.
But as you grow older and as your body begins to develop, you begin seeing the humanity and the subjectivity of your existence. Quote the term existentialism, because existence precedes essence, basically. In Sartre's words, existence, you being brought into this world through your mom and your dad having a good time, having a fun time in a good place, but doing bad things. Basically, what I'm saying is that they're having sex. Which is your existence precedes the essence, so your essence is your subjective meaning.
Right. That seems to be kind of like heavily against the common ideology of like, no, you can literally become your own essence.
Yeah. And like your essence is what they mean by meaning is a consequence of engagement and commitment.
Right.
So when you engage that thought and you engage that essence and you commit to that essence, that's when you have that subjective lifestyle, that subjective viewpoint. Or as Matt puts it, subjective meaning. It's not really meaning, guys. And this theory purports, great vocab term, purports to describe the human situation, to create a life outlook and create meaning, which has been summarized as strut, fret, delude, and to delude ourselves as we may. Our lives are of no significance, and it is futile to seek or affirm meaning where none can be found. Existential nihilism claims, to be honest, one must face the absurdity of existence, that he or she will eventually die, and that both religion and metaphysics are simply results of fear and death. Quo everyone ever, and I mean that everyone ever has thought about time travel. Literally everyone ever. Like the idea of time travel. It's like one of the few things that every human thinks about at some point in their lives. Like, what if I could go back in time, redo this?
Right.
Safety.
Even the normiest of normies have that thought.
But And one of my favorite terms in existentialism, absurdity, also a great vocab term. One must face the absurdity of existence that he or she will eventually die, because eventually everybody will. Humans are very fragile things, as I said earlier in this podcast, and we will eventually die. And absurdity is also brought up in cosmicism when you think about it, because absurdity and existentialism is that when you realize the absurdity. If I can speak today, that'd be great. Absurdity of existence, then you can truly find that subjective meaning. Whereas cosmicism basically says the absurdity of existence is what is the reason why there can't be subjective or inherent meaning. Because when you realize the absurdity of existence, and I'm going to quote H.P. Lovecraft real quick, one of my favorite novel writers. The human race will disappear. Other races will appear and disappear in turn. The sky will become an icy void pierced by the feeble light of half-dead stars, which will also disappear. Everything will disappear. And what human beings do is just as free of sense as the free motion of elementary particles. Good, evil, morality, and feelings. Pure Victorian fictions. Only egotism exists. It's great.
Only egotism exists. What about egoism? So like Max Stirner philosophy. That's a future episode.
That's what I think about that, Matthew.
Well, Stirner was a Marxist too, so you probably don't care.
I mean, I read Marxist things so I can call out they're wrong.
You know what you should do after I'm done with it? You should read the Communist Manifesto and just like put a bunch of sticky notes in it of why you think this is wrong.
Just write it out. But to further explain Lovecraft's words,
Right.
When his protagonists, being the heroes in his stories, which often die actually in Lovecraftian literature, when his protagonists are gradually and incrementally confronted by the reality of the absurdity of their existence, and the complete indifference of the cosmos to humankind, as represented by the infinitely old and supremely powerful and indifferent eldritch abominations in his stories, such as Cthulhu. I hope everybody knows who Cthulhu is.
I hope.
And if we're thinking of something else, think of like the Infinity Gauntlet. You'll probably get that. You'll probably know that one.
Thanos.
Not Thanos himself. The power of the Infinity Gauntlet that he uses. It is completely indifferent of the cosmos to humankind. The Infinity Stones, and when Thanos snaps his fingers, the Infinity Stones and their power are completely indifferent of the cosmos and of humankind.
Right, because it's just a device.
And that's a great representation. Which, when you think about it, and this is one of the major problems with cosmicism, is that a lot of people who truly study it and truly look into it tend to go fucking mad because they realize just how absurd and completely pointless their existence is.
So the absurdity drives them insane.
Yes.
But what I would argue is, what is insane? What if they were insane to begin with?
That was the least existential thing I've ever fucking heard in my life.
No, you know what I mean, though? Like,
well, it sounds
what
like
if insanity is a social construct? I tend to think it kind of is. Like,
I don't think so,
because no, but mental illnesses are literally just like they document specific behaviors and thought processes, and they categorize them into this group of like, you have depression. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but if you look at somebody, like if you look at an MRI of somebody,
right? The brain scans show like the
brains are completely different. Like
right.
somebody who's, if you were to take a brain scan of a normal human brain and somebody who's insane, their brains look entirely
So
different.
there is an objective component to it. But what I would say is like, do we as a culture even know where the line is of
No,
insane and not?
no, it's just a social construct,
Yeah.
like everything else.
Because the
we
the
can't
word crazy is so overused.
we can't truly define insanity, but it is there.
You know what I
I'm
mean
saying?
though? Like
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say.
our culture's so ignorant of basic concepts.
Yeah. And I'm gonna go back to Sartre in a minute. But I'm gonna try to further explain Lovecraft's words. The difference between existential nihilism and cosmicism is that existential nihilism proposes the universe and human existence has no inherent meaning, so it leaves humans to determine what their meanings are, right?
Mm.
And I've said this like probably 5 times. I've been trying to keep count, and I know it's probably getting annoying. But where was I? And leaves human beings undetermined and free to create their own meaning and purpose. It is not a pessimistic philosophy at all. Rather, it is an opportunity for the individual to determine himself through his choices. As Jean-Paul Sartre said, we are our choices. Cosmicism, on the other hand, proposes that the universe is indifferent to humanity and there is no meaning, and that no meaning is possible.
So that's why I was saying like existentialism is emancipatory because it's like you free yourself of the idea that there was an objective purpose for you set up.
I mean, I guess the best way to differentiate existentialism versus cosmicism, and it's honestly part of the reason why I prefer cosmicism.
When you say cosmicism, do you mean like cosmic pessimism? Is that the same thing? Okay.
Cosmicism is cosmic pessimism. I probably should have explained that. But the reason I prefer cosmicism to existentialism is that like existentialism is an inherently objective viewpoint, right? Because you're creating an objective morality.
Well, it's kind of based on what's objective and what's not. Like, okay, morality isn't. You can make your own subjective. Meaning isn't. You can make your own subjective of that too.
Yeah.
You know.
Existentialism is inherently subjective, right? It's the viewpoint of the individual. The reason I prefer cosmicism is because cosmicism is inherently non-subjective in their viewpoints. Because
it's hyper-realist.
They believe that nothing I ever think or say or do will matter.
Yeah.
It's only the viewpoint of the universe that matters, and that's cosmicism.
So go deeper into cosmic pessimism here, because like I'm struggling to find out. Like, you know, you talk about how like you accuse me of like not living the way that my philosophies project and like the Thomas Jefferson comparison and all that stuff, but how exactly would a person live like a cosmic pessimist? Like I feel like it'd be interesting for you to outline that.
They would listen to the call of the void.
Okay.
Do you know what the call of the void is?
No, what do you mean by the call of the void?
Have you ever been like on top of like a roof or something?
Yeah.
Have you ever gone to the edge of said roof?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Fuck with the edge, bro.
So basically, people who have their licenses and drive might understand this. At some point in everybody's life, they get what is called the call of the void, and a lot of times it happens nowadays when you were driving. And basically,
just like crash into the sky.
No. What literally goes through your mind is, what would happen if I drove into the oncoming lane?
Right, so like those thoughts, like I have those thoughts.
Yeah, but you don't listen to them because you realize the fact that it will end your existence.
Right.
Pure cosmicism is listening to the call of the void.
So to be a cosmic pessimist is to be fucking dead.
No, not.
You just kill yourself because you listen to the call of the void.
Being true cosmicism is basically killing yourself.
That's fucked up though. Like, what kind of philosophy is that?
And that's the whole point of my philosophy, and that's like the hard part about believing in cosmicism.
Because it's like when do I kill myself?
The truest idea of cosmicism is that And that's where a lot of people don't understand cosmosism, and I'm going to try to explain this in a way people can understand, is that like the call of the void doesn't happen very often, but it happens to everybody. Everybody gets that feeling that maybe I should just jump off this roof. Maybe I should drive into the oncoming lane. Maybe I should do this. The inherent idea of cosmosism is that you enjoy your life until you hear that call of the void, and when you hear that call of the void, you listen to it.
I think some people do.
That's what
I think
I
that's
plan
how
on
some
doing.
accidents happen. Literally, it's just people have the pervasive thought, and nothing stops them from listening.
Like I truly believe that like the decisions I make throughout my life will lead me to a point where I might be on like the edge of a cliff, and I might get that call of the void, and I truly believe I will listen to it. I will dive head first into that cliff. Yes.
How common do you think that is? How many suicides do you think are just listening to the call of the void?
Almost all of them.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think almost all of them.
I'd probably say at least 70% of them.
That's a high number.
Yeah.
I feel like most suicide cases are just literally like, I am fucking too mentally fucked up to deal with this, so I'm gonna end my life.
And you need to be pretty fucking mentally fucked up to listen to the call of the void.
Well, yeah, but like, do you though?
Yes.
Like, I feel like that's a whole second.
Because there is no person that believes in cosmosism who is mentally stable. Because
define mentally
the reason
stable.
the reason a lot of people become mentally unstable is because they realize their existence is pointless.
But how low is your bar of mental stability?
Killing myself.
That's kind of a high bar.
How low is my bar of mental
Yeah.
stability? Oh. I thought you were talking about like how low do you have, like what's rock bottom of your
No. Like, what is stable?
What is my version of stable?
Yeah.
Somebody who hasn't realized their existence.
So it's literally like a dumbass.
Yeah.
Kind of. Like an oblivious person.
That's why I love the term ignorance is bliss so much.
Because it is.
It is.
But the pursuit of knowledge can be blissful.
But the pursuit of knowledge leads to the realization of existence. Which is
inherently tragic.
Yes.
But does it have to be tragic if you go the existentialist route?
Those are the people that
survive.
Those are the people that survive their stability, their mental instability.
So I'm surviving my mental instability, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, that's like 100% accurate. You kind of nailed that part.
When do I not nail things?
When you apologize for capitalism.
Wait. So I'm not nailing something when I apologize for believing.
Well, when you be a capitalist apologist, when you make excuses for.
See, that makes more sense.
That's what I meant to say. But
and I mean, I don't think so.
Yeah, I know you don't think so. I mean, sometimes I don't think so either, because you actually make some good points. But
I make very good points on it. Sometimes I do it almost all the time.
Nick does not make bad points.
Like the reason and I'm not trying to sound arrogant when I say that. The reason I am so good at arguing is because I'm very, very good at
forming an argument,
tearing apart your argument.
Yeah. So, what else we got?
Give me a minute. I'm texting people back. So like, talk.
Okay.
Talk about your beliefs of existentialism.
So basically, like, how many things in this world are actually like ordained by the fucking gods? Like, how many things in this world, you gotta think, are objective? Because you're gonna find out not many are. Like, it's a lot of just like, oh, the right thing happened at the right time to make it so this chair looks the way it does. You know what I mean? Like, it's all like, it's almost chance. Chance plays a role.
Chance plays a role in anything.
Entropy and chaos just creates the whole environment. And I think that like
That's why I think the Joker would be a cosmicist, a cosmicism.
in a way he really is a nihilist, at least, right? Like
Yeah.
he really
Well, like the inherent idea of cosmicism is that like we try to believe in the viewpoint of the universe, right?
Mm.
And if you really look at it, the universe is entropy. It's chaos. And the Joker's whole philosophy is that he lives for chaos.
Right.
So he is
He's an agent of chaos.
he's an agent of cosmicism.
What he means by that is he operates as if he's not even a free agent. He's a tool of a force, like a cosmic force of chaos, which is like a really interesting, badass like line to throw out there. Like, I'm not even a real person. I'm just a fucking demonic force here to tear up order. It's cool. Joker is like probably the most interesting comic book character to psychologically and philosophically analyze.
Can I like kind of roast your view of nihilism real quick?
If you want to, yeah.
In the words of Donald Crosby, from his book The Spectre of the Absurd, moral nihilism denies a sense of moral obligation, the objectivity of moral principles or a moral viewpoint. Epistemology nihilism denies there can be anything like truths or meaning not strictly confined within or wholly relative to single individual group and conceptual scheme. Cosmic nihilism disavows intelligibility or value in natural seeing, or it is indifferent to you or hostile to fundamental human concerns. Existential nihilism negates the meaning of life.
Hmm.
So you were talking about trying to be a moral nihilist. But the problem with moral nihilism is that it denies that sense of moral obligation.
Well, does it intrinsically? Because like my claim is
It denies the sense of moral obligation of the whole because of the overly moral obligation of the few.
but my claim is just that no morality is objective.
So
I don't take it to the point
That-
where it's like
that's existentialism. That's not moral.
I don't take it to the point where it's like I am untethered from morality because I feel like
I believe
just
that.
because something is subjective doesn't mean it's not doesn't count. That's
Yeah.
that's the thing that kind of probably keeps me from going in more the direction that you go with your nihilism. I don't think just because something is subjective means it doesn't count.
I don't, and that's not what I'm trying to say, Matthew. I don't think things that are subjective don't count. I just think, like, I mean, I guess you could actually say that because
Because that's kind of your whole point about like the viewpoint.
subjectivism of the individual, like subjectivism is the viewpoint of the individual, and that's the problem with existentialism. Is you can't view it from your own existence. You must view it from the existence of the universe.
But it seems like such a non-starter though. Like, where are you gonna get through that? Seems like a door to nowhere.
Yeah, it's because it is a door to nowhere. It's a door to nothingness. For all the Magic players listening.
Is that a card?
Yes. But yeah. Honestly, I think this is the most I'm gonna be able to talk about today. We could come back on it next time. Or we can talk about something new.
We should.
Maybe we should have the people who watch us comment on that. Do you want to continue listening to nihilism or do you want to start to talk about something new?
Drop it down there in the comments.
Do you want to hear more about nihilism or do you want to talk about new things?
Right. And we will. Are we signing off right now?
Yes, because I low-key have to shit like real bad.
That's a valid reason. So we will see you next time on the Abstract Thinking channel.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Hope you enjoyed it.
See ya.